So standard deviation, tedium, tedious, time-consuming. Yes, all of those things. But I'm going to use a simple data set, and then I've chosen this one because on number 1 on your check understanding, page 233, it gives you class A and class B. So I'm going to work through class A with you, and then you can go through the same steps using class B, and then you can compare the final results. So this is going to get you started, and then you'll have something to practice with that's really, really similar right away. Now, standard deviation, this little wiggly O, is supposed to show you how much each individual value deviates or differs from the mean value, the average. So what we're going to do for that is we kind of figure out how much different each one of the values is from average, and then we square it, which gets rid of any negative values, and then we take the average of that. And so basically it's the average of how different your values are from the average. If you have a low standard deviation, it means that the numbers aren't very different than the mean. There's not a lot of deviation in your data. If it's a high standard deviation, that means you've got a lot of variety within your numbers. So the first thing that we want to do when we're finding out standard deviation is we want to find out the deviation part. So I've listed all of the test scores here, and you can see that there are 5 of them. So the first thing we need to find out is what is the average, what is the mean of those test scores. So we added all the test scores up. It turns out that the total is 390, and there's 5 of them. So to find the mean, I'm going to go 390 divided by 5. If I do that, calculate it out, it becomes 78. The next column says, what's the difference between my value and the average? So that's the number that's in that column minus 78. That's what we're going to be doing. So we'll fill in those values. I'll write the first one out. 94 minus 78 is going to give us 16. And the rest of them I'm just going to fill in. So if I take 56 minus 78, I'm going to get negative 22. 89 minus 78 is 11. 67 minus 78 is negative 11. You can check these to make sure that I'm right. 84 minus 78 is just 6. So you can see that if we added these ones, it would cause a problem because we don't care which side of the mean they're on. We don't care if they're less or if they're more. We just care how far away from the mean we are. So what we do to make these negatives go away is we're going to square that number. So we've got this x minus x, this is my mean there with a little line over it. We've already got these values in the brackets here. Now we just have to square them. So turns out 16 squared is 256. 22 squared is 484. Now I know you guys all memorized this from before, right? 11 squared is 121. Negative 11 squared is 121 as well. Remember that a negative times a negative is a positive, so you're never going to get a negative answer when you square a number. What you want to do in your calculator to make sure that you don't get screwed up by that is put it in brackets before you square it, right? Remember to put it in brackets first if it's a negative. If it's a positive, it doesn't matter. 6 squared is 36. Now what I want to do is add all of these numbers up. So I've got my total row here. So if I add all these numbers up, it turns out it's 1,018. So that is the sum of all of the deviations. When we look at this formula, it's a little freaky. It's got a bunch of symbols in it. This weird little wiggly E, this means the sum. So literally what this formula is saying is the sum of all the deviations squared divided by the number that there are of them, which in this case is 5, and then you take the square root. So I'm just going to plug that in. I'll make my little wiggledy, well, let's try and do a little better job of that. Equals the sum, or the square root of, and I've got this sum. That's what this is. So I could even make a little note. This is the sum, and that the squiggledy f is just a function. It doesn't actually have a value. It just kind of shows you that you're putting in this function. So that's what this number is. Put this number here, and then I'm going to put in, pardon me, how many I have. And n is 5 because I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers that are going into this thing. So if I work this out, 1018, my little calculator here, I just plug in 1018 divided by 5 equals, so I need still have the square root sign, but I've solved under the square root sign to be 203.6. And then if you have one of these calculators, you could just go second function root, and then second function answer, which is your negative button here, and it brings that answer down. And then turns out that our standard deviation here is 14.27. That's actually a big standard deviation. That means that on average, our test scores fluctuated up or down 14 points either side of the average. And that makes sense because we've got 78 as our average, and we've got a couple of really low scores, 67 and 56, which were 11 and 22 away from the main score. And then we've got a couple of high scores. Well, we've got one quite high score and then another one that's a little bit off. So, wait, no, there it is, the two high scores. This one's pretty close. So we've got quite a bit of deviation on either side. That's pretty much what this value is. It's saying that most of your data is going to be 14 above or 14 below your mean. If I had a small standard deviation, that would mean that my data really didn't change much from the mean, right? Because maybe it went 2 or 3 above, 2 or 3 below. If you have a good data sample, if you're actually somebody who's researching and collecting data, you do not want a big standard deviation. You want data that really shows that whatever pattern you're looking at is a true pattern that holds over time. So when we see something that's a standard deviation of 14.27, that's a really big number. So hopefully that clears something up for you. If you have any questions on anything at all, then either post it on the website or send me a personal email and I'll get on it. I can do a video like this for you, or we can set up a Meet, which is on any of your Google home pages. There's a little dot in your little matrix there at the top that you got like 9 little dots. You click on that and it says Meet. You can set up a video conference with me. Anything you guys need to do, just make sure that you're communicating what you need me to teach you, right? Because it's a little different than sitting in class. So you guys got to kind of take the lead here and focus on what you need me to explain to you.